started as a joke. A long table, couple of paddles, a casual break on a film set after hours. Someone suggested ping pong to kill time, and the room filled with easy laughter. Crew members, a few stunt men, a couple of visiting martial artists who thought they'd already seen everything Bruce Lee could do. Bruce stood off to the side, watching. He always watched first. One of the stunt coordinators smirked. "Hey Bruce," he said, tapping the paddle against the table. "You ever play?" Bruce smiled. "A little." Another man laughed. "Careful. This isn't kung fu. You need coordination." That's when someone noticed Bruce wasn't reaching for a paddle. He was walking toward his bag. The laughter got louder. From the bag, Bruce pulled out a pair of nunchaku. Plain wood, worn smooth, tools not props. Someone actually laughed out loud. "You're kidding, right? Ping pong with nunchaku? That's not real skill," someone muttered. "That's just showing off." Bruce didn't answer. He stepped to the table, spinning the nunchaku once. Not fast, not dramatic. Just enough to feel the weight, the rhythm, the balance. "You're going to break the table," another voice joked. Bruce looked up calmly. "Serve," he said. The ball bounced. Once, twice, and in that instant, right before the first strike, no one realized they were about to witness something that would be talked about for decades. Because what Bruce Lee was about to demonstrate wasn't a trick. It was control. And the laughter was about to disappear. The serve came in light and casual, the way you serve when you expect a joke in return. The ball skimmed the net and bounced toward Bruce's side of the table. Bruce didn't rush. He didn't swing. He adjusted his stance by half an inch, eyes tracking the spin, the height, the timing. The nunchaku moved, not as a weapon, but as an extension of his wrist. A soft tap, barely a sound. The ball returned. Clean, controlled, perfectly placed. The room went quiet for a beat. Then someone laughed again, louder this time. Beginner's luck. The second ball came faster. More spin. A little attitude behind it. Tap. Return. The third ball came harder. A real shot now. Bruce's hand rotated, nunchaku shifting angle midair, the chain flexing just enough to absorb energy. The ball didn't just come back. It came back better. Lower. Shorter. Meaner. A paddle clattered to the floor. "Wait," someone said. "Hold on." The rally continued. Each hit looked impossible in a different way. Sometimes Bruce used the wood. Sometimes the chain. Sometimes the transition between the two where no flat surface should exist at all. Yet the ball obeyed. Bruce's face stayed calm. No smile. No strain. Just attention. "This is staged," a stuntman whispered. "It can't be," another replied. "Look at the spin." The opponent stepped closer to the table, suddenly serious. He slammed a hard topspin shot straight at Bruce's body. Bruce didn't block. He rotated his wrist and caught the ball on the chain for a fraction of a second, then flicked it back. The ball kissed the table and died at the net. Silence. Someone swallowed. Loudly, Bruce finally spoke. "Again." The man nodded, slower now, and for the first time no one in the room was laughing. Because this wasn't showmanship. It was something much more uncomfortable. Precision. The opponent wiped his hands on his pants, suddenly aware of them. His grip tightened around the paddle. This wasn't a joke anymore. This wasn't a break between takes. This was a test. He served again, harder, faster, aiming wide, forcing Bruce to move. The ball cut through the air with sharp spin, the kind meant to rush a response. Bruce moved before the ball finished bouncing. Not fast. Early. The nunchaku traced a tight arc. Not flashy. Not wide. The strike was short, economical. The ball shot back cross-table, clipped the edge and vanished off the side. "Point," someone whispered, unsure why they said it. The opponent frowned. Okay. He leaned forward, eyes narrowed. This time he smashed the ball, full power, the way you do when you want to end a rally and prove something. Bruce stepped in. Too close. The ball should have jammed him. Instead, the chain of the nunchaku flexed, absorbed the impact, and redirected it. The return came back with a deadened spin, dropping just over the net. The opponent lunged. Missed. The ball rolled to a stop. No one spoke. You could hear the hum of the lights overhead, the distant noise of the set outside the room. Someone's breath held too long. "That's impossible," a voice said quietly. Bruce lowered the nunchaku. "It's balance," he said. "Same principle." "Same as what?" someone asked. "Everything," Bruce replied. He handed the nunchaku to his other hand without looking at it. "No adjustment. No test swing." "Serve," he said again. The opponent hesitated. That hesitation was the moment everything changed. Because Bruce wasn't reacting anymore. He was leading, and everyone watching could feel it. That invisible pressure, the sense that the outcome was already decided before the ball ever left the paddle. The serve came, and the room leaned forward as one. The serve finally came. Slower than before. Careful. Measured. The kind of serve thrown by someone who no longer wants to look foolish. The ball bounced once, then twice. Bruce shifted his weight almost imperceptibly. His feet didn't slide. They settled. The nunchaku moved with him, not after him, like it was reading his intent instead of following commands. Tap. The return wasn't aggressive. It didn't need to be. It landed short, forcing the opponent forward. Another hit. Another return. The rally stretched on, longer than anyone expected. 10 exchanges. 15. 20. And something strange happened. People stopped counting. They stopped looking at the ball. They started watching Bruce's timing. He wasn't chasing the ball. He was already there. Each movement began before the ball finished declaring its direction. The nunchaku never looked rushed. Never out of position. It flowed, bending physics just enough to make logic uncomfortable. "This isn't ping-pong anymore," someone whispered. The opponent tried changing pace. Fast shot, then slow, then sudden side spin. Bruce adjusted without effort. The chain absorbed. The wood redirected. Control without force. Sweat formed on the opponent's forehead. He stepped back, then forward again, breathing heavier now. "This doesn't make sense," he muttered. Bruce heard him. "It doesn't need to," Bruce said calmly. "Your body understands it already." The opponent slammed a desperate shot, full power, aiming straight at Bruce's chest. Bruce didn't flinch. He rotated his wrist and let the chain take the impact for a split second, then snapped the ball downward. Clipped the net and dropped dead. Game. No cheers. No laughter. Just silence. Not the awkward kind. The respectful kind. Because everyone in the room realized the same thing at once. They weren't watching a trick. They were watching principles reveal themselves through motion. And Bruce Lee hadn't even broken a sweat. The opponent stared at the ball on the floor like it had betrayed him. He bent down slowly, picked it up, and rolled it between his fingers. His pride was searching for a place to stand. "That's not fair," he said, trying to laugh. But the sound didn't come out right. Bruce tilted his head. "Fair?" he repeated, almost curious. The man shook his head. "You're using a weapon. I'm using a paddle." Bruce's expression stayed calm. "Then use what you want." That sentence hit the room like a second serve. People glanced at each other. Someone whispered, "He's serious." The opponent looked around, then grabbed another paddle and handed it to a friend. "You?" he said. "Play him." The friend hesitated. "Me? Yeah," the opponent insisted. "You're ranked. You actually compete." Now the air changed again. Competitive energy. Real stakes. Not a joke between crew members anymore. A test with a witness list. The new player stepped up, adjusting his grip, eyes sharp. He served fast and low. Bruce returned it with a soft tap that barely moved his arm. The competitive player frowned and increased speed. The rally began, and for a moment he held his own. 2 exchanges. 3. 4. Then Bruce shifted. Not in speed. In timing. He started placing returns to corners that forced uncomfortable footwork. He changed rhythm without warning. One ball came back dead. The next came back with vicious side spin. The paddle player kept reacting, always half a beat late, always correcting after the problem already happened. The room watched him break down in real time. He missed a return by inches. Then another. His breathing got louder. His eyes widened. He tried smashing to end the point. Bruce absorbed the force with the chain and sent it back shorter, making the smash pointless. After the fifth miss, the competitive player stepped back, mouth slightly open. "How are you doing that?" he asked. Bruce lowered the nunchaku. "Same way you do anything well," he said. "You remove what's unnecessary." The first opponent, still holding his pride like a cracked trophy, finally said it. "That can't translate to fighting." Bruce looked at him and smiled faintly. "That's where it came from," Bruce replied. The silence returned, heavier than before, because now the joke had become a question nobody wanted to answer. The room stayed quiet after Bruce's last sentence. Not because people didn't know what to say, but because whatever they had planned to say no longer felt safe. The first opponent leaned against the table, arms crossed, eyes fixed on the nunchaku like it had personally offended him. "So you're saying this," he nodded toward the table, "is the same as a fight?" Bruce shook his head. "No," he said. "I'm saying your body doesn't know the difference between chaos and control." He stepped back to the table and placed the nunchaku down gently, parallel to the net. The act alone drew attention, like a teacher setting down chalk before saying something important. "In a fight," Bruce continued, "you don't think in techniques. You think in timing, distance, rhythm. Here," he tapped the table lightly, "it's the same. The ball doesn't care what tool you use. It responds to energy and placement." One of the stuntmen spoke up. "But you're reacting to spin, speed, bounce. Too many variables." Bruce smiled. "Exactly." He picked the nunchaku back up. "Too many variables means you stop predicting and start listening." He motioned for another serve. This time, 3 people took turns serving, different styles, different speeds, different spins. The ball came from everywhere. Bruce missed none of them. Sometimes he used the wood. Sometimes the chain. Sometimes the transition point that shouldn't work at all. The ball kept coming back. Not harder, not flashier. Just smarter. The servers started hesitating. Their rhythm broke. Their confidence thinned. One of them finally stopped mid-serve. "I can't tell when you're going to move." Bruce nodded. "That's because I've already moved internally." He set the nunchaku down again and looked around the room. "Speed isn't how fast you swing," he said. "It's how early you decide." No one laughed now. No one joked. They were too busy realizing something uncomfortable. Bruce hadn't turned ping pong into a martial art. He had revealed that it already was won. And the legend was only halfway told. The laughter was completely gone now. Not replaced by applause or excitement, but by something heavier. Respect mixed with disbelief. The kind that makes people quiet because they don't want to miss anything. One of the older stuntmen leaned closer to the table. "I've worked on sets for 20 years, he said slowly. "I've seen tricks, camera tricks, stage timing. This isn't that." Bruce glanced at him and nodded once. "Because tricks need cooperation," he replied. "This doesn't." The first opponent straightened up, rubbing the back of his neck. "You're not trying to win," he said. "You're controlling the exchange." Bruce rested the nunchaku against his forearm. "Winning is a side effect," he said. "Control is the goal." Someone else spoke up from the back. "So if this is control, what's the lesson?" Bruce didn't answer immediately. He walked to the far end of the table and looked back at the group. "Most people," he said, "try to impose themselves on a situation. They force outcomes. That creates tension." He returned to the table and gently bounced the ball with the nunchaku. Straight up and down, perfectly centered. No spin. No drift. "When you understand timing," Bruce continued, "you don't fight the situation. You enter it." The ball dropped. Bruce caught it with the chain and let it roll to a stop. The first opponent exhaled slowly. "So all that speed, all that flash, it's not the point." Bruce smiled faintly. "Flash is noise. He handed the nunchaku to the opponent. Try. The man hesitated, awkwardly swinging once, nearly dropping it. A few people chuckled, but it was nervous laughter now. Bruce didn't correct him. He just said, "Feel the weight. Don't rush." The man tried again, slower, more careful, and for the first time that night he stopped trying to look impressive. The room watched as something shifted, not in skill but in mindset, because Bruce Lee hadn't just silenced laughter. He had replaced it with curiosity. And curiosity, everyone there could feel it, was far more dangerous. The opponent handed the nunchaku back with a careful respect that hadn't been there before. He looked at Bruce differently now. Not as someone doing something strange, but as someone revealing something hidden. "I thought skill was repetition," he said. "Do it enough times and you get good." Bruce nodded. "Repetition builds familiarity," he said. "Understanding builds freedom." He placed the ball back on the table and tapped it gently so it rolled toward the net and stopped. "Most people repeat answers," Bruce continued. "Few repeat questions." The group leaned in again. Even those pretending not to care were listening now. Bruce asked for one last serve. No challenge in his voice, just closure. The ball came in with heavy spin, the kind meant to drift late. Bruce didn't strike it immediately. He let it rise, let it fall, let the moment complete itself. Then touched it with the nunchaku so lightly it barely made a sound. The return was perfect. Not fast, not aggressive, inevitable. The ball landed, bounced once, and rolled off the edge. That was it. No rematch requested. No jokes offered. The room stayed still, as if everyone silently agreed the lesson had finished itself. Bruce lowered the nunchaku and finally smiled. Not proudly, warmly. "It's not about the tool," he said. "It never is." Someone asked the question everyone was thinking. "So why the nunchaku?" Bruce considered it. "Because it doesn't forgive mistakes," he said. "It tells you the truth immediately." That answer stayed in the air longer than any rally. People began to move again, but slower, thoughtful, like they didn't want to break something fragile that had just formed. The first opponent shook his head quietly. "We laughed because we thought we knew what skill looked like." Bruce met his eyes. "Most people do." He picked up his bag, ready to leave. No bow, no announcement, but something had already been left behind. Not a trick, not a story, a standard. People didn't rush to speak after Bruce started packing his bag. The sound of zippers and soft fabric felt louder than it should have. No one wanted to be the first to break whatever had just settled over the room. The first opponent finally did. "I laughed," he admitted, "because I thought skill had to look hard." Bruce paused, hands still on the strap. "Hard is often unnecessary," he said. "Unnecessary is often slow." That sentence landed quietly and stayed. A younger crew member leaned against the wall, eyes still on the table. "When you played," he said, "it felt like the ball didn't have options." Bruce nodded. "That's control," he said. "Not domination. Guidance." Someone else asked, "Could anyone learn that?" Bruce didn't answer immediately. He looked around the room, at the faces now stripped of irony, of ego, of clever remarks waiting to be deployed. "Yes," he said at last, "but only after they stop performing." The first opponent laughed softly, shaking his head. "I've been performing my whole life." Bruce smiled faintly. "Then you're very good at something that isn't helping you." That didn't sting. Clarified. The opponent looked down at his hands. "When you used the nunchaku, it felt like the tool disappeared." Bruce zipped his bag closed. "That's when you know you're doing it right." Outside, someone knocked on the door, calling for Bruce. The set was ready. Time to work. Bruce slung the bag over his shoulder and turned back once more. "If you remember anything," he said, "remember this. Control doesn't ask permission." He opened the door. Light from the hallway cut into the room. And then he was gone. No applause followed. No one chased after him. They didn't need to. The room had already changed. And everyone there knew they'd just seen something they wouldn't be able to explain easily, but would never forget. Years later, the story would be told differently depending on who spoke. Some said Bruce Lee played ping pong with Nunchaku. Some said he humiliated a room full of professionals. Some said it was just a strange moment blown out of proportion. The truth was quieter. Bruce Lee didn't turn table tennis into a stunt. He turned it into a mirror. What people saw reflected back wasn't his speed or his coordination, it was their assumptions. About skill. About control. About what mastery is supposed to look like. The laughter at the beginning of the night was easy, safe, familiar. The silence at the end was earned. Because silence comes when there's nothing left to argue with. Bruce never claimed what he did was superior. He didn't name it. He didn't package it. He simply demonstrated what happens when awareness replaces force, when timing replaces effort, when flow replaces resistance. That's why the story lasted. Not because of the nunchaku, not because of the ping pong table, but because everyone in that room walked away knowing one uncomfortable truth. They had been practicing answers. Bruce Lee had been practicing questions. And once you see the difference, you never laugh the same way again. That's how legends are born. Not in noise, in silence,